Shh. It's that time, y'all. Time for Big Boys Boxing.
If you think I'm a pussy, I'm a punk, you tell me right now. Because listen, I am the baddest nigga you ever fucking meet.
So that'll give a bit of energy.
Kia ora team, and welcome back to Big Boys Boxing. And today is my prediction video for Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce, which will be happening this weekend. It'll be on Sunday morning, New Zealand time. And what a fight. There's a lot of to and froing between fans who thinks who's going to win, and I think it's legit a 50-50 fight. So firstly, let's take a look at the fighters. We'll start with Daniel Dubois, who's 23 years old, has 14 knockouts, 15 fights, 0 losses, 0 draws. He's 6'5" and has a 78-inch reach. The most notable names on his record would be Kevin Johnson, as I'd already mentioned, Nathan Gorman. He's fought Kitaro Fujimoto in a giant mismatch. He's also fought Richard Latte. He's pretty much the only man who's managed to hurt Daniel Dubois just a little bit, but eventually got knocked out in that fight. And there's not really anything else of note on his record. Certainly nobody the caliber of Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce is 35 years old. He has 10 KOs, 11 wins, no losses, no draws. He's 6'6" and has an 80-inch reach. Now when it comes to resume as a professional, he has a much stronger resume in my opinion, fighting the likes of Bryant Jennings, who he beat over a 12-round decision, and that's the only man he hasn't stopped. He's also fought former WBC champion Bermane Stiverne and an old Alexander Ustinov. Also worth a mention was his pro debut against a decent domestic level fighter in Ian Lewison. So when looking at both of these fighters' attributes, there's a lot to consider, and I think there's a lot unknown at a high level for the younger man at the same time. A lot of people, when this fight was first being talked about, were saying yes, Daniel Dubois is going to take this one, and everybody seemed to point out the technical flaws that Joe Joyce had. But there's the other side to that argument. We don't know what Daniel Dubois has got at a very high level because he simply hasn't been there. We've seen Joe Joyce for many years in the amateurs. We know exactly what we're getting with him, and he still manages to beat the odds. I mean, if there was any other fighter that fought like Joe Joyce, a lackluster defense, just keeps coming forward, takes a lot of shots, but just keeps coming and coming and coming, most guys wouldn't be where Joe Joyce is today. So you've got to give him credit for getting to where he is today. At the same token, we've still got to give Daniel Dubois credit for getting to where he is today. He's only 23 years old. He's getting close to a world title shot. If he wins this, he's possibly in line for a shot at a WBA title. Now Daniel Dubois, the unknowns, I mean, it really does look like he can bang. I've heard several people who have sparred him say that yes, Daniel Dubois hits harder. I think Daniel Dubois has better defense by a long shot. I think his accuracy is much better than Joe Joyce, but he doesn't have very good head movement. He doesn't have very good feet. We just don't know how good his stamina is going to be at this level if the fight goes long as well. So there's much to consider between the two guys. Some keys to victory for Daniel Dubois. I think the jab is going to be important, especially against someone like Joyce, who's going to come forward a lot. He's going to have to step into that jab to try and deter Joyce coming forward as hard and as often. Also, make sure you drop that jab to the body as well to slow Joyce down. We saw against Bryant Jennings in the very first round. Joyce got hurt to the body. I don't think Jennings even noticed. But left hook to the body is another biggie for Daniel Dubois. Make Joyce think about rushing in with those big, heavy, thudding blows. Also, left hook up top. Change it up. Make sure it's going high and low. Keep him guessing. Use that speed to throw short 2 to 3 punch combinations and then get out of dodge. Step around. Use your angles. All of this will set up a right hand. And if he lands that right hand straight and true on Joe Joyce, I think it could be good night for the first time in Joe Joyce's career. Yes, I think Daniel Dubois does hit that hard. Some keys to victory for Joe Joyce. I think the biggest thing for Joe is he's going to have better defense than we've seen in the past from him. We know he can punch heavily when he gets to his men. We know he can use his feet. We know he can move his head a little bit. But I think he needs to move his head more effectively at the right times. He seems to move his head when he's out of range and then forgets about it when he gets in closer. I think he definitely needs to be jabbing and hooking to the body of Dubois to try and slow him down. Try and maintain the right range, either outside where he has a slight reach advantage or right in close and lie all over Dubois to try and get him a little bit more tired. It is rumoured that Dubois might not have as good a stamina, but I'm not quite so sure because we haven't been proven that in any such way so far. So I think Joe is definitely going to have to break down Dubois. Like I say, use that jab, use it at the right distance. Do the normal thing once you think you're in the right range. Throw those hooks, throw those straights. But I think he needs to pump a jab out a lot more. And I think he has to concentrate on getting his hands up quicker after he throws. I know it's hard for Joe because his punches seem quite slow and it takes a little longer for him to get his hands back up. But I think he needs his hands up higher, not down low, shooting from the hip, because Dubois is quicker than him. He hits harder than him. But I think it's definitely a possibility that Joe, with his relentless pressure, might end up being too much for Daniel Dubois, and he could stop him later on in the fight. I don't think he's going to be able to get him early. I just don't think his shots are going to be heavy enough or quick enough to land often enough on the younger, more powerful, quicker man with better defense. But definitely Joe can take him out late. So man, this is a really, really good fight. I think it's legit 50-50 and could go either way. Now, the bookies are still heavily backing Daniel Dubois, but I believe the odds are shortening. There's money coming in on Joe Joyce. It's pretty attractive when you're offering 6-1 odds on Joyce for a KO. And it could happen, so if you're a betting man, maybe chuck a 10 or a 20 on that and you could get 6 times your money back. But I also see a lot of people who were initially backing Daniel Dubois are kind of sliding and changing their minds, thinking the pressure, the volume, the experience is going to be too much for Daniel Dubois, which is possibly likely. But I'm different. I'm going to stick to my initial thoughts of Daniel Dubois taking this fight by KO. I think the accuracy that Daniel Dubois has allows him to throw not as many punches, so he's not as likely to gas out. I haven't seen any evidence that Daniel Dubois can't go the distance, and the fact that he's got a 12-year age advantage on Joe Joyce I think is also a big factor. Also the fact that Joyce doesn't have very good defense, and he hasn't faced a really big puncher, which I believe Daniel Dubois is, as a pro, somebody who's actually going to land on him. So don't try and tell me Bavane Staverne's a big puncher, because he didn't land squat on Joe Joyce, did he? But I think the accuracy and the power, the youth, I think it's going to get to Joyce, and I think we're going to see him knocked out for the first time in his career. So, let us know your thoughts. Do you think I'm way wrong? But, looking forward to reading your comments. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, don't forget to give me the thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And I will catch you in the next one. I'm Jono from Big Boys Boxing, and I'm out. So.
Subscribe to Q Box.
That's the one.
Yeah.